Good morning, beautiful people from planet Earth and all other interdimensional entities and sentient beings across this expansive cosmos. It's Wednesday, the 14th of January 2026, and the time, Brisbane time, is 10:26 a.m. It's another hot day, but there's some lovely breezes blasting through. It's quite windy now that I've taken myself and the birdies outside, but it was actually cool in their room. I think they were better off in the studio where their bedroom is, but they like being outside, so I brought them outside, and then I realised it's a bit hot, but never mind. I have my trusty spritzer and the wind's blowing through, and look, to be honest, in spite of the wind and the heat, it's actually a glorious day. So not a bad day to be alive on planet Hellscape. It's as good a day as anyhow. So I thought I'd continue reading to you and me Boadicea, by Amanda Scott, Dreaming the Serpent Spear. We're up to chapter 34. I'll just pour myself a glass of water. I had very intense dreams. I wrote about it on my Facebook page that I usually record my dreams or any unusual events, spiritual or mundane. Not that mundane events are unusual, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean, don't you? Anyway, I recorded my dream, and I'm still thinking about it. It was a good omen. I dreamt that I was trying to unclog a toilet that was somehow attached to a swimming pool with very clear crystal blue water, which is a very good omen. And shit, the turd was a giant frickin' fatberg scale type turd, and as I wrote in my story on Facebook, was the size of a man's fist, and I was poking at it with a stick trying to break it up because I was very terrified that it would backflow into the swimming pool where children were swimming, and I didn't want them to be swimming in E. coli and effluent and feces, and it was just gross. I'm not sure if it was my own shit or someone else's, but the way I took propriety over clearing it, I think it was my own. Anyway, I mean, you have to be real about these things. It was only a dream, people, but in real life I'd be just as disturbed. So anyway, I'm poking at it, and then suddenly a voice says to me, someone nearby says, you better get rid of that thing, because if it flushes into the swimming pool, it'll be a constant feedback loop, because they don't recycle the water in the pool, and it's just going to constantly be flushing through there for forever, which technically isn't true because they put chlorine in pools. But on the other hand, it's a gross thought, isn't it, that if someone were to shit in a pool, how long the bacteria would be floating around till someone poured a fresh batch of chlorine and changed the water. So that was, I mean, you have to laugh at my brain, but that was on my mind in the dreamscape last night, and I was quite fraught and frenetic trying to remove this very solid mass of a turd, and couldn't quite break it up. And I know what probably triggered that. My neighbours had a plumber over yesterday, so that's probably what was playing in my subconscious. And I've had my own chronic problems with sewerage on this land here for 22 and a half years, so maybe mine's about to back up again, who knows. But anyway, having said that, dreaming of shit or feces is actually a very good omen. It usually means that money is coming, or you're going to get a promotion, or there's some kind of inflow of money from, one would hope, a benevolent, loving source, am I right? So I woke up and thought, it's a really gross dream, but if money comes, it will be worth putting my subconscious through the mill for that. And I have no idea where money is coming from, people of Earth. Money is always very tight in psychedelic dreamers' world, or Titania's realm. But it was a very interesting dream because the colours were very bright, almost primary colours, and very realistic. And it felt like I was living it, actually. So, but that's why I call myself psychedelic dreamer, because my dreams are often in technicolor and very realistic, as if I'm living in some other parallel, life, second life somewhere else, or some other parallel universe. So anyway, it was interesting. It was interesting having the voice say, that's just going to keep flowing and recirculating unless you get rid of it. And a poignant message there. So, yes. Lots to think about. Anyway, let us begin chapter 34. Hawk? Hawk was nowhere. In his place were a dozen warriors, all of middle age, who ringed the road where there had been nothing but morning mist and boulders and nettles, and the signs of the legions marching. There were no women among them, only men, powerfully built and naked, but for their knife belts, and painted with red clay in straight lines from ankle to brow and armpit to wrist. Their kill feathers were from a red hen and banded in black down the quills. Just watching Kermit eating his millet sprig I gave him this morning. He really likes that. Mainly, he doesn't really eat it, he just likes ripping it apart, but that's what I gave it to him for. Yes, Bo, I'm watching you, watching me too. You're happy in the garden, aren't you? Yes, you're a good boy. Mummy's good boys. Their hair was stiff with red ochre and smoothed back in 2 lines, so that they were horned. Speaking of hair, mine's buffy again today, by the gods. I don't know why. I brushed it and everything. You wouldn't think I brushed my hair, would you? Well, I did. Their knife belts were of red deer hide, and the knives that hung on them were hilted with antler. Granny had not seen a naked man since the night of the assault. Only now, through panic and nausea, did she realise the constant, quiet effort that had been made to ensure that she did not. Even now, with danger encircling, Dubornos pushed his horse across so that she might not have to look. He was too late, but he had tried, and she loved him for it. She looked down at her horse's mane and breathed hard through her mouth, and felt Belos's hand on her back between her shoulder blades, and the urgency in it, and the need not to make a scene. Newly, Guinevere was there, sitting tall, with her cloak pushed back so that her scars were more readily seen, and the dreamer's thong from Mona Throwing her voice out as if she were addressing the elders in the great house, she said, "We escort the Boadicea's daughter. She has been to Mona for healing after her rape by Rome. She is needed now for her part in the war against the legions. Would you harm her?" The men swayed back and forth like birch in a breeze. One to the left, the northern side, said, "Never harm the child of the Boadicea." His voice was thick with the accent of the ancestors, as if he had not lived through the nightmare of Rome or even the wars between the tribes that came before it. Gunova said, "So then we may pass?" Hawk was there, a long way back in the trees. Grain saw him and Dubornos. They turned their heads to look elsewhere. The red-painted men swayed once more and came back upright again. The north one said, "Daughter of the Boadicea may pass alone, or she may wait with you and your men." It had never occurred to any of the party from Mona that Ephnus, Dubornos, or Belos might be considered to be Gunovar's men. The strangeness of it echoed amongst them. The dear elder saw it. He stepped up to Gunovar and raised his hand and set the heel of his palm on her forehead, and then his first two fingers, so that she was left with a smudged bar and two vertical lines of red clay paint above the dreamer's thong. He said, "Given of the god, given to the god, marked by Rome and by Mona, now marked by greater than that. We honour you if they do not." His eyes were deer eyes, wide and brown, but not afraid as deer's were. He regarded Grainy thoughtfully a moment, and then set a small vertical line between her brows. She felt the press of his touch, and then a tingling that lasted a long time afterwards, where he had left the clay. "Given to the Herr daughter," he said, "young but older inside, not too young to dance. Better if you come with us and wait with the others." He stepped back and looked down at the scrub woods and heather moors beyond, so that his voice carried. He said, "The Koratani will follow." Hawk was gone, a shadow somewhere in the trees. Still, there was no doubt that he would follow where Grainy went, or that Grainy would go where the others were taken. Kermie's in his toy box. They used to be afraid of that little box I bought for them. It took them 2 months to get used to it. They're very slow to accept new things in their cage, I've noticed. It can take them a long while before they'll play with a new toy or be relaxed around some new introduction to their cage. But I'm pleased that they're playing on that little box because I bought it specially for them. The Gunava asked, "For what do we wait? Attendance on the god." They rode west, hard and fast through the day, and attended the god near dusk in a wooded valley at the foot of a high limestone crag that fell vertically down. A grave mound of the ancestors sat squat and silent on the western lip, and the red-painted deer warriors would not look at it as they reined in their mounts on the crag head. The sun was an egg yolk broken open on the horizon. Rich light spread flatly out to skim the tops of the trees in the valley below. The white rock was the colour of sulphur, falling away as if the god's axe had split it down to the earth. Igraine looked over the edge and felt the dream of herself tumble out into oblivion. She froze, clinging to the saddle, and could not move. "We can't go down there." Bella said it could not see. Bella said it who could not see. The nearest deerman glanced at him sideways with white-rimmed eyes. The leader, who was marked from the others by a single additional red strip that ran upwards from his chin, dismounted and wove a way between the warriors and the sparse young pine that studded the crag's head. He alone was able to look Bellos full in the face. He did so for an age, and then nodded and said, "You can." "How can you carry us? I cannot see, and the child cannot move." The deer chief shrugged. His face showed a bored contempt. "You go or you die." Gunava raised her hand, and he flinched. She said, "You swore you would not harm the daughter of the Boadicea." "We will not, but we cannot protect her if she is here. She is only safe in the valley with us. No man who stays at the craghead when the god comes can live." He considered and amended that, nodding to Gunava. "Nor any woman." Speaking towards the trees, he said, "If the Koratani wishes to meet his death cleanly, he too will come down with us. He cannot be concealed in the land of the Horned One. To meet his death cleanly, Hawk will not die." Loudly, in Greek, because they had spoken it a little together on Mona, and the dear men were least likely to know it, Graney said, "Hawk, leave, find the Boadicea, tell her what has happened." The deer elder grinned and seemed less human. He nodded as if she had played her part right in a ritual of his making. He waited, watching the darkening sun, and the smile faded from his face long after his eyes had taken the red part of the god's fire and drunk it in and made of it something older and less benign. At a certain point, when the sun's light was almost gone, he lifted his head and barked deep and low, like a stag at rut. The trees moved, and there were 3 dozen deermen where there had been nothing, and Hawk was in the centre of them, backed by unsheathed knives. Blood oozed from a line down one side of his face, where they had cut him, so that he was red-striped as they were, in parody or as a beginning. Granny saw it and would not believe. A part of her stepped away to become separate and so safe as it had done when the rape began. She heard Belos's voice, clear as a wren's. Don't go. He will need you to think and care for him. Keep safe and ask Nemain for help. She did not know if he had spoken aloud or in her mind, but it worked. And she came back and felt sick, which was better than feeling nothing. The deer elder saluted Hawk and then Grain, linking them. He spoke to his own men in a tongue that was still the grunting of deer, and then once more stepped to the edge of the crag. We go down, he said thickly. Those who need help will be given it. No one this time spoke against him. The descent was a nightmare, better not remembered, a precipitous climb in which white crumbling stone kept Granny alive, and a man who was not one of those she had learned to trust pressed his body to hers, holding her into the rock at the times when her foot slipped or a handhold proved insecure, and she began to peel backwards away from the cliff's face. Her head swam and her guts rebelled. But Belos's words remained clear in her head, so that she held the sight of Hawk in her mind, with a single red knife cut down his face, and the power of that kept her moving and putting her feet where she was told, and her hands gripped the rock, and she did not become paralyzed with fear as she might have done. And there was an end to it after eternity, when she stood on flat ground between 2 drooping birch trees and clung to the deer man and let him hold her until the shaking stopped. By comparison, the climb up to the cave a short while later was easy. Belus was helped by the deer elder because the other deer warriors would no longer go near him. He saw too much. Following these two, Grain scrambled over white rock and then up a small path that became a series of handholds carved into the rock, and then a flat ledge wide enough to walk on that bent round a corner. They came to the cave suddenly, as if it had moved out of hiding to reach them, not they it. The mouth gaped wide as a hunting bear's, easily big enough to swallow them. Fronds of fern drooped over the arch, fringing it with green teeth. Belus stopped, and then Grainy. The ancestors used this, he said. It's older than the great house on Mona. What you doing, little boy? You come to listen to the story. Are you one of Boadicea's birdie boy babes too? You're a Boadicean babe. Yes, you are. You'd fight in my army, wouldn't you, boys? Yes, as long as you give us treats, we'll fight for you, Mama. We'll go anywhere you go. Where you go, we will go. Where you lie down, we will lie down. Where you rise up, we will rise up. Wow, it's a nice fantasy, isn't it? Finding a tribe of people who respect me and love me and care for and about me. One day it could happen. Here's my beautiful boys. I love it when he sits on top of that ladder and just stares at me. It's very sweet. The deer elder touched a hand to the rock, as if it were a thing of his own making, and he justly proud. It's older than even the grave mounds of the ancestors. There are bones of deer in this cave, on which the year marks have counted 50 generations, and they were old before the marking began. It was impossible to imagine so much time. Just see if they want to spritz. Kermie quickly runs away, but little Bo's sitting there taking the water. You love that water, don't you? It's nice. It's cooling. It's good for you. Try and get little Kermie. There we go, Kerm. There you go, Kermie boy. Nice and wet now. Nice and wet. Good boys. Did you have a spritz? Did you have a spritz for the schwitz? Bo's looking at me like, yes, I do declare that I did. He's shaking it out. Good boys. Is that good, Cam? Right. Let me just repeat that line. It was impossible to imagine so much time. Grainy said, that's older than Rome. The dear elder looked at her and into her and seemed surprised at what he saw. He considered a moment and then stepped back and brushed a fern sideways so that they could see paintings on the wall of men with red striped bodies and antlered heads. There were dreamers of deer here in the days before Rome was a village with 3 hens and a starving cow, he said. His accent was less thick than it had been, as if he no longer needed to set himself apart. He spoke with the same quiet intensity as Luann McCalma or Valerius, or, less often, Briaca. We intend that they shall be here, free to dream, when Rome is reduced to that again. You who fight with us are welcome. The cave will keep you safe in the dark part of the night before the moon rises. They were different as they entered the cave. Less prisoners moving under duress, more participants in a rite that had not yet begun. Grain felt an itch in the clay-marked line on her brow, as if it were newly made, still hot from the boiling pans. She followed Ephnus through a limestone cleft, smaller than the big caves of the west, and whiter, but still with room for a fire and the dozens who grouped round it. Must be more than a few having trouble with their sewage at the moment, because that was a big truck with what looked like kind of the pumps that they use to unblock the drains. So yes, my dreams prove rather accurate after all. Hopefully it doesn't happen here, because it's not long ago being all unblocked, and I get really upset and pissed off when my sewage overflows, people have heard, especially since it comes from all the houses around me, and it's a lot, and it's not even my own bloody sewage, which is bad enough already, by all the gods. You going to sleep now, little boy? You sleepy birdie boy? It's hot and it's a good morning to just snooze in, Mama T. Okay, you do the cockatiel dreaming. Come back with a vision for the mama. Tell me what's going to happen with our world. Who's going to love us? Who will be good and kind and loyal and faithful and honouring? I will, he says. He opened his eyes really wide. I will, Mama T. Okay, I meant a human man, but it's okay. Birdie love is just as good as any other kind. Most of the time, better actually. Sad but true. Right, where were we? Let me continue on with the story. The cavern opened out at the back to make a wide circular chamber. 2 stag skulls adorned the entrance to this, one on either side, and on the arched limestone walls were paintings of stags and horses and hares, and men who had become deer and danced to a painted fire. Sounds fun, doesn't it? Sounds a lot more fun than we've been having lately. A real fire was lit in the centre, far back so that its light barely reached the entrance and could not be seen from outside. Smoke filled the air lightly, pine and green oak and the singed hair of an animal. Already other deer men sat in rings about it, too many to count. Like deer, Grain and those with her were herded into the farthest corner and left. She sat on the floor and leaned back on the wall and tried to bring her breathing back to normal. A youth came and offered them oat bannocks, seared to blackness on the fire. Duborna said, "They feast us. We should be honoured." He sounded like Valerius. His voice had the same dry irony. She had not seen it before so clearly as a defence against fear. Gunnevald said, "This is god food to mark us for the Horned One. They will have killed a stag. We will be expected to eat of it before moonset in the morning. I suspect it will not be cooked." I've got ants crawling all over my legs. It's really uncomfortable, people are there. It's the only disadvantage of reading out in the garden is the ants. Come here, boy. Bobo boy. Yes, it's the garbage truck. The garbage truck's doing their thing. "The fires for other things?" asked Belos, and was not answered. Hawk came in last and did not sit. He stood with his back to the ragged limestone and stared out to the night beyond the cave's mouth, where a sudden sharp storm had passed over and left the night cool and damp. Sometime in the descent, all their weapons had been removed. Hawk alone had been stripped. The knife wound ran the length of his body, from his hip to his shoulder to his brow. It bled as if newly done. Grain shuffled across to sit closer to him. "Do you know what they'll do to you?" "Nothing. They wouldn't dare. Even here, the Boadicea's name is set next to the gods." He had rested his shoulders on the wall. There was blood on it from an equivalent line down his back. He was slick all over with a light sheen of sweat, and there was goose flesh on his arms. Dear goddess. Granny said, "I wasn't asking about me. What will they do to you?" "I don't know." Hawk looked down for the first time, away from the cave mouth and the night beyond it. "Our mothers tell us things when we are small, to make us squeal and grow big eyes and stay in the roundhouse until dawn. I believed them, of course, because all children believe their mothers. But then they told us similar things about the Iceni, and I have not yet seen any of them to be true." He would not look her in the eyes. The bruise on his lip that came from Valerius's knife was gone to a faint green, so that Grain could not have seen it if she had not known where to look. It mattered less now than it had done. He had been the best hawk scout of his generation, and Valerius had treated him as an arrogant hound whelp in need of training. The men of the Horned God saw him the same. She thought that Valerius might have been right, but that the journey to Mona and all that had happened there had changed him, so that now the deer men were making a mistake. She was not certain that they would treat him any differently if they could be made to understand that. Pretty boys. I'll just show you what he's doing. What you doing, little bird? Leaning forward, taking great interest in something. What about you, Kermie? They like being together now. The first thing I do when I open up, because I put them in their own cages to sleep, but as soon as I open up his cage and little Bo's cage, Kermie flutters over and joins Bo for the day, and like really happy to be in his companionship now. I mean, they have their little scraps. I had one before, a little bit of a hassle, but most of the time they just sit and stare at each other. That's why I started putting them together in the same cage, because I observed that they were just looking at each other from the two separate cages, just quietly communing. Thought, well, they can be in together if they get along now. So there is that. Guinevere finished her bannock and wiped her fingers on her tunic. She said, "They will make him the Horned One with paint and antlers, and have him dance with me and mate at the end of it. If he will not dance or refuses the mating, they will flay him and use his skin to cover one of their own, who will do it instead. If he does as they ask and dances well, they will kill him differently and keep it short, so that his death fills only the time just after dawn, when the sun and the horned moon share the sky." She splayed her fingers so that they could see the scars where they had been broken. "It helps to know," she said. "If I were you, I would dance when they ask it, and everything else. I will not hold it against you." Hawk's head turned on his shoulders smoothly, like an owl's. "How?" he asked. "How differently will they kill me if I do as they want? As they have started, with knives or with the fire? I believe you will be allowed to choose." "That's what our mothers told us," said Hawk. He sounded surprised, almost relieved. "You were right. It is easier to know? He hesitated a moment, then sat down to join them and accepted one of the burnt bannocks and let Ephnus and Dubonus draw him into conversation about the cave and the way it had been painted, and the talk drifted into other things, and he did not go back to looking out at the darkness. He's back on the ladder watching me again. After a while, when nothing had yet happened but that more deer men came and built the fire higher, he asked Dubonus and Ephnus to help him, braid his hair after the manner of the Iceni, with a warrior's knot at the side and a single black kill feather woven in at the temple. Ow! That was a nasty bite, little ant. By the gods. Ephnus gave him a necklace to wear with amber beads carved in the shapes of dream animals. 6-legged bears followed wildcats with long teeth, and otters that held snakes between their jaws. Bellos had an armband in bronze that sat well on Hawk's arm, and Gunnevor took some red wool from the edging of her tunic and bound it about the quill of the feather to mark him as one who had saved others in battle at the risk of his own life. He looked quite different when they were done. Dubonus said, "They want you as Koratani, not as Iceni." Hawk grinned. "Then they can change me, but they will know they have done it." The rite of the horned god began with 3 young women, painted all in black spirals, who played whistling pipes carved from deer horn that made low, fluted noises like night birds. The music looped up and down, weaving laceworks of sound that encircled Hawk as a net circles the salmon, and drew him away from the others to stand by the fire. They made him stand in the north, the place of the hunter, of the warrior, of the horned god. The leader was the same one who had taken them in the beginning. He stood, and for all his strength was smaller than a hawk, and his hair did not gleam on his head, nor was the bronze of his skin set off by the armband of the same colour, and the flowing amber about his neck. He bore no kill feathers, red-banded or not, and was less for it, and must have known it. Hawk said, "The Karatani worship the Horned One above everything except Briga. Even so, we do not send unwilling life to any god. Nor do we. When you understand what we ask of the gods and they of us, you will embrace your death willingly. The music and the dance alone will make it easy." Three young men, painted in white lines, brought Guinevere to him. She was lame from the Roman inquisitors, and had nothing to adorn herself, and still she looked regal. With care they removed the dreamer's thong from her brow, and gave her a neckband instead, made of the backbones of deer. The deer warriors made a corridor, and two at the front took the skulls and tapped on them with bones to set up a rhythm, as the bear dancers did on their skull drums, but less discordantly. The elder took his knife and made a third cut on Hawk, who stood still and let him do it. Ow! The man stepped back and grunted, and was half deer again. "Outside, everybody!" His arms swung wide. "All of us, from youngest to oldest, will dance to meet the god outside, under the stars and the horned moon." Just see how long chapter 35 is. So almost an hour in. Usually I read only for an hour, but it's lovely out in the garden, so I might continue on one more chapter for today. Chapter 35. In the land of the Cornovi, only Ardokos could travel safely. The pathmakers of the Brigantes were fast and silent and left no trail, but they did not see the scout who watched from a hillside. Ardokos saw him and found him and killed him, and returned with a Cornovi knife with a deer's foot hilt as proof. Briaca thanked the pathmakers and sent them back to Venutios. Soon after that, Ardokos left his horse on open land, where it could be found by others, and went on foot, ranging from side to side on the rolling heath and into the open weed of the forest, leaving marks that only Sigva could find. Briarka followed her lead, as safe or as dangerous as it might be. She could do nothing else, nor speed their travel. Miraculously, she felt herself free of all responsibility for the first time since she had come east from Mona to the lands of the Iceni. It was an illusion, but she accepted the gift of its freedom and chose not to think deeply on what they were nearing, or the failed quest behind, or the question that Venutios had offered as an unexpected, unwanted gift. With Sigva ahead and Stone at her heel, she rode fast on small paths, or no paths at all, heading south and a little west. The grit, stone and heather moors of the meeting place became high limestone crags and deep clefted valleys with forest eaten at the edges by the axes of the legions, not yet reduced all to farmland. Just get some water, people, there. There's a movement in the force. No sign of rain though, but the light has dimmed and the wind has increased and then dropped. Odd. Very odd. Near evening, under a clear sky with the sun vastly red on the horizon, they saw Ardokos for the first time since he had abandoned his horse. He sat on a fallen birch, eating flowers of cow parsley and elder, so that his lips were dusted and yellow, and his thighs streaked where he had wiped his fingers clean on them. He had taken the time to braid his hair and weave in the eye teeth of the bear that were his right. His face was painted with white clay, and his eyes were no longer haunted. There were 3 deer-handled knives nearly hanging from his belt. Briarka said, "You have met with the bear?" "I have, and she is content." There was a life in his eyes she had not seen for years. He too was reveling in the gift of a day's freedom, whatever may come at the end of it. He met her gaze and held it, and said the things without speaking that she needed most to hear. Breaking off, he nodded over his shoulder to the forest, where the undergrowth grew to chest height and seemed impassable. From here we need to leave your horses also. He looked up the length of her, from feet to head. Are you fit to run? It was a challenge of the kind they had set each other on Mona long before, when the world was young. She lifted one shoulder and said, I don't know. Shall we find out? I tell you what, I went for a short walk around the block. I went in a different direction than I normally do, and it's not that bloody hilly. It goes downhill, and then coming back you're going slightly uphill. But I didn't take my Ventolin before going for the walk, and I didn't bring it with me because I haven't really needed to use it in about 12 months actually. I've been very good with my asthma. But I was doing this short, fat old lady zombie shuffle, just not exactly sexy, but it's not the purpose of walking around the neighbourhood. Looking sexy, you understand. But I was shuffling, and I only got just down the end of the pathway behind the houses here, which is 100 metres? Maybe not even that, maybe only 50 metres. And I started walking down the hill, heading towards, I was thinking about going into the forest, but it was nearly dusk, and I thought it's a bit dangerous to wander through the forest alone. I had a torch with me, but I thought, no, I'll just stick to the streets. And as it was, people walking past me were walking dogs and what have you, and they're also fucking hostile, There's a hostile vibe permeating off them. They just give you these really hateful, ugly looks. Fuck, I hate living here now. But I thought, fuck you, and kept walking, as I do through my entire life, in spite of all the fucking haters. And anyway, I kept walking, but in a very short distance, not even till I reached the end of the street, I was having trouble breathing, and I was and I kind of freaked out because I didn't have my Ventolin with me, and I thought, oh well, I guess if I drop dead, I drop dead. My enemies will rejoice, and that'll be the end of that, and I'll have peace at last. So I didn't even stop to rest because it just seemed so ridiculous. It was only a very short distance. Some old man came out with a little black dog in his arms, dragging his bin out, just sort of casually looked at me, because I don't normally walk in that direction anyway. So no one knows me. And so I just sort of nodded and kept walking. He wasn't hostile, he was just, concentrating and taking his bin out. And then I carried on walking, and I observed all the brand new houses, because my whole neighbourhood's been gentrified. They've knocked down the old housing commission post-war cottages like mine and put up all new homes. Some of them are actually quite nice, some of them are ugly fucking mausoleums, but some of them are quite charming, much bigger than the original homes and using all of the land, but some of them had nice gardens out front. So I was just sort of taking interest in all of that. But so anyway, I got home without fainting or anything untoward happening, but I felt so exhausted. I really need to be doing that little walk every day. I had a walk a few days prior and then didn't walk the last few days, so I've got to build up my strength, people of Earth. I can tell by my lungs how they responded to that just that little bit of exercise, it nearly fucking killed me. But anyway, it's odd, you know, how I can dance for hours with a couple of Jack Daniels under my belt and do go home utterly exhausted, but I can have a lot of stamina when there's music playing in a crowd and I'm dancing. But a solitary walk around the neighbourhood or anywhere feels difficult and fraught and somehow dangerous. It's odd, isn't it? It's odd. It does not make logical sense. But anyway, I got mail today. Let's just wait a minute before I continue reading. Yes, I'll just go and get the mail, people of Earth, and then I'll come back to you. I'll wait till he puts it in the thing. I miss my Rachel. She was a lovely postie. I miss her. Right, you are. Here we go. So let us continue with the story, people of Earth. She could run, which was good to know, and exhilarating for a while before it became simply hard work. What on earth is all of that? My bristle discs arrived that I replaced because I never did find that one that went missing. It's utterly bizarre. What have I got here? Those ants biting is so annoying. Right. I thought I only bought two. There's four. I bought two. Must have been two per pack. I bought more replacement screens for my phone because I fucking kept cracking it the other day. I cracked it twice in one day. It's nuts. I got this lovely Klimt medicine cover too. I've been spoiling myself a little bit because I've been a bit depressed, quite frankly. It gets a bit like that, so you know, sometimes indulge myself a little bit. Why the fuck not? Who else is gonna indulge me apart from my beautiful friends years ago that did indulge me immensely? My beautiful friend, when I was fostering her cats, she spoilt me lavishly, I have to say. And my other close friend of 37 years used to spoil me and Jared used to spoil me, but now we've all fallen on difficult times, and now I have to spoil myself when I can, and continuously strive to improve on my life when I can. I actually feel really unwell lately. Just walking to the letterbox, everything hurt. My Achilles heel hurts. I don't know what that's about. And walking down was fine. It was coming back up. This is bad, I do need to get my weight down, and I'll have to start putting on music and dancing for an hour a day in the house. Get back into at least dancing for exercise. And yes, discipline myself, people of Earth. It is a kind of a discipline. What you doing, Kermie? You playing? Are you playing with your toys? You're a good boy, aren't you? Yes, Mama, I'm a good boy. Even when I'm not a good boy, I'm your good boy. 'Cause you love me. Can't always be perfect, can we, Kermie? We've got to be ourselves. He's eating fruit now. Good boy's eating fruit. Right, where were we? She could run, which was good to know and exhilarating for a while before it became simply hard work. The challenge was greater than they had ever set on Mona. Then they had not been flogged, had not walked the grey lands between life and death, had not lost, and so we found the reasons for living. Fucking gets harder every day to re-find reasons for living, people of Earth. But here I am with my birdie boys in the garden, so there is that. Only once on Mona had they had to run and fight and hide with death all around from undiscovered sources. Here it was not all running. Briaka crawled along paths through dense brush that opened only barely and closed behind them. She crossed rivers on stepping stones screened by drooping hazel and river alder, so that they were invisible until she trod on them. She sheltered under a white thorn bush for the duration of a storm and then ran on. Long into dusk, she scrambled up a narrow path by feel alone and sat for a moment at the top of the limestone crag, clutching the bent rowan that had anchored her with one hand and stone with the other, and thought that if she was not as fit as in her youth on Mona, she was no worse than she had been before the procurator's flogging, and perhaps a little fitter. As soon after that, they saw the fires in the wooded valley down and to their right. Wait here. Adokos laid a hand on her arm. Briaka sat and watched him slide alone into the dusk. Oh yes, son, remember I've got my veggies coming today. I wonder what time they're going to arrive. Guess it doesn't matter, does it? I'm not planning on going anywhere today. I better check though, because last time they just dumped them on the front steps. I didn't even know they were there. No, it's all good, people of Earth. It's all tutto bellissimo, to quote an discarnate spirit that visited a few days ago. Tutto bellissimo. Tutto, tutto, tutto bellissimo. Siegfried did not wait. She vanished and returned as a ghosted shape in the dusk. Only her hair was visible in the silvered whites of her eyes. The grain's there in the valley. And the others? They're all there, and more than 100 Cornovi, all dancing. Hawk is in the centre, wearing a stag skull with antlers. There's a woman with him. I think it may be Gunnavar. From somewhere to the right, Ardakos said, "It is." He pushed through branches that drenched him with old rain and came close enough to let her read him in the dusk. He loved Gunnavar as he had once loved Briaka. The weight of that carved new lines in his face. To him, Briaka said, "If we attack 100 Cornovi, we'll die and they may kill the others. To live, we need to reach the elders alive." "You here for your food, turkey buzzard?" It's empty. It's the bloody... I keep forgetting to put it away at night. The possums would have taken the rest. He's looking, stepping in the bowl and looking at me. "Do you want some food, mate?" "All right, just bear with me. Just finish this paragraph. If we walk in openly, do you think the scouts will kill us before they recognise who we are?" Oh, he's wandered off without it. Maybe he's not that hungry. Oh, but I feel mean. Yeah, I'll put some seed out. Just bear with me, people of Earth. Come on, little one. Come on. Mama's got food for you. Come on, boy. He doesn't usually eat the whole amount anyway, just, you know, he doesn't realise I've put food out, so he's eating in the garden, pecking at worms and bugs, and you know what, that's actually better for him anyway. But it's there if they want some. The crows have a little peck, they just eat the corn. They're so cute, they hold the dried corn kernels in their beak and they just look at me like, "It's all very well, Mama T, but we prefer chicken or scraps of meat." And I'm like, I know. Kermie. Right, we'll carry on with the story, people of Earth. Do you think the scouts will kill us before they recognise who we are? They know already. She saw the tilt of his face in the part light as he looked down at his hands. It is only because of who you are that we have been allowed to come this far. If they did not have orders to guide us to their elders, they would have been sent away. We would have been sent away long since. The admission hurt. He was once the best there had ever been. He raised his voice so that the words carried to the sighing trees. I know of 6 who watch us and have done so since we entered the woods. Another 2 I am less certain of. It was not impossible, only unexpected. Briaka had never yet felt unsafe in Ardokos's care. She said, if they knew you were there, why did they let you kill 3 of their scouts? The sunlines deepened about his eyes. The ones who died were not good enough. The men of the deer, like the followers of the bear, test their young thus against worthy opponents. I am not unworthy. Those deaths will not be held against us. But they didn't kill you when they knew you were there. They too are not unworthy. Does the same not apply? He grinned, a youth again, who has won a challenge. They didn't know where I was except when I was with you, and you are the Boadicea, who is guarded now by more than Briga and the grandmothers. You make your own rules, or the gods make them for you. How do they know that? He shook his head at the stupidity of the question. Briaka, it shines from you. It has always done, just less so when you were ill. The elders of the Horned One are not so different from the elders of the She-Bear. They will see it as we would. If you would stand now and address those who are hidden, we can test if I am right. Grain danced for the horned god under pine made heavy by rain, to skull drummed rhythms and pipe music, and low urgent chants that the god had given to the ancestors and had never been changed. The skull beat was a heartbeat, calm sometimes, sometimes hunted, sometimes, and Grain shut herself away at these times, fired by the rut and the power of the god in the stag battles, and the mating afterwards that was the right of the victor. I smell cigarette smoke, so my neighbour's out in his garden smoking and probably listening to the story too, but probably not necessarily. But I can smell him sitting out there. Those times apart, she danced through the sweat and the smoke and the weaving net of noise because she could do nothing else. The songs sang into her blood. The skull drums pulsed into the marrow of her bones. The whistling pipes drew her soul forward so that her flesh had to follow. She danced in a ring of Kornovae. They were not all men, but all of them except her were old enough to have had children, and all the women showed the linear marks of childbirth on their bellies. They were all unclothed, and no one tried to protect her from the sight of it, and she found that she no longer cared. With Dubornos in front of her, animated as she had never known him, she danced time and again through the cycle of life that was most sacred to the Kornovae, through the growth of the small things seeded by the stag in the belly of the hind, and the quick slither of its birthing and its first steps in a world where the horned one held the new life sacred. With Ephesus wild-eyed and leaping behind, she danced over and over the enfolding breath of the mother and the calf's first knowing of cold, first fear, first taste of milk, and of green things growing, and of bark in the winter when the snow hid the ground. With Belos close to her side, sure-footed as any mountain hind, she danced and became the deer, and lived and almost died free of humanity's care, and so began to touch the edges of what that might mean. She was one of hundreds, and they all danced in a ring about the horned man in the centre, who was hawk and not hawk, and the woman who was more than Gunnevald, who met him and painted her face with his blood. They danced, and the rain dried on the grass, and the stars spun and made new shapes, and every one of them was carried by the magic of the drums and the hornpipes. And they were no longer Iceni and Kornovae, and a single Koratani, forever at war, but one pulse, one heartbeat, one breath, one dance through life towards the inevitable death. And there was not one of them who would not willingly have stepped over the precipice that their dancing made to fall into the arms of the waiting God when he called them. Each time they came close and backed away and started the cycle again with the rut and the setting of seed. They felt envy that the one in the centre was the chosen, that his seed would remain to make new life, and he would fly to the God in the moment of his perfection. Perfect God, Deus Exactos is the Spirit. mentioned a few days ago, calling attention to this moment in time in the story, the peak experience, the ecstasy, the, as I euphemistically like to put it, the catharsis, sending your soul out to the gods and having it returned back to you, altered, sanctified, emboldened, blessed, and protected. A blessed be, little ones. And he would fly to the God in the moment of his perfection and be honoured for it ever after. A grain stubbed her toe. It was a small thing and only came about because she was by far the youngest and the smallest of the dancers. And what has died each time I have reached my catharsis and my wild dances out in the music scene? What has died each time? The lies and the deception and the treachery, and the fools who thought I was some kind of wicker woman, some sacrifice for them to feed off like Van Kurik vultures. But in effect, a sacrifice has indeed been made and reclaimed. Yes, my little baby, my sweet little baby. A grain stubbed her toe. It was a small thing and only came about because she was by far the youngest and the smallest of the dancers. She was a hind, or perhaps a young buck, and the hunt began, and she was trying to outleap the hounds, which meant leaping higher than Ephnes and Dubornos. She came down awkwardly and twisted her big toe, and it hurt so that she hopped and lost the rhythm and thereby lost the dance. She understood the power of it only by the shock when she stepped back. She did not stop dancing. To do so now would have been to risk being trampled by the rest. But the salt sweat on her lip was no longer the salt of birthing, and the pounding heart in her chest was from exertion, not from the hunt, or the rut, or the closeness of death. Which, when Santa Muerte takes us into her loving arms, it can feel Very loving and romantic indeed, people of Earth. Vaya con Dios. Go on your way. Sí, madre, sí. Blessed be he who comes. Baruch haba'ah. Hopefully not another fake, false fop and a fucking monster. Because I'm done, people of Earth. Done. Done dealing with piss-weak, vicious, evil men and their handmaidens. Very foolish to use those women. Very, very foolish indeed. She looked about her and saw Ephes, completely given to the god, which, as I said, is a ecstatic, blissful, euphoric state, a catharsis. And far more surprisingly, Dubornos dancing with his eyes half closed and rapture painted on the hills and valleys of his face, such as she had never seen in him in the whole of her life. He was a man transformed, aching with the fear of the hunt and the proximity of death, and yet in ecstasy of a kind his troubled heart had never given him. She looked for Bellos. Look at this little munchkin, look at it. He's ripping what's left of the seagrass matting. I'll have to buy another one. He's even chewing the edges now. What you doing, Kermie? Are you being a parrot? Are you being a destructive little chewing parrot? Oh yes, Mummity. I'm not even going to take any notice of you, Mummity. I'm in the throes of my own ecstasy. Right. She looked for Bellos and found him nearby. And that was the greatest surprise of all. He leaped from the others and shook his head with the pound of the beat. But when she sought him and found him, he turned his blind face to hers and smiled quite normally, and then blinked both his blind eyes together in such an obvious signal that she stopped dancing for a moment, and havoc and discord shivered down the line. Don't stop. Bellos was at her side, lifting her forward so that they could continue. Stay in yourself and watch and learn. It is not a bad thing to be given to the God, but the moon will rise soon and things will change, and it is good for one given to Nemain to be able to step away from her when the need arises. But you're given to Briga, and she is mother to all things, even the horned god, even death. And I think, if you look now between the trees, that she has sent one who will change what was to have happened here. You may not have to watch Hawk die. Granny stared about, confused. She was dancing again and the fire was bright. Beyond it, the forest was a swirl of dark and other dark, and none of it had shape more than a shadow, except for the silver haze on the horizon that was the first cutting edge of the sickle moon. Bellos picked her up and whirled her high and set her on his shoulders. His hands held her tightly, buoyantly. He was as exuberant as the others, only with a different reason. "Be my eyes for me," he said, laughing, so that she laughed too. "And tell me that I am right, and that not only is the Boadicea healed, but she has found the heart song of a blade that will carry all of us past the legions." Briaka heard the song of her father's blade long before she came to it. Because of stone, she could not climb down the rock to the valley's floor. Because there was no other way down nearby, the Cornovi scouts, who had become their guides, led them south along the top of the cliff towards the far southern end, where the limestone dipped away to join open heathland, and a hound could run safely down. How sweet they prioritised the dog. I love dogs. I'm not a very good dog mother because I'm not good at training them, but I love them. Just like I'm not good at training birds. They should be sitting on my shoulder and free-ranging around the garden by now like Charlie, but they haven't fallen in love with me yet. They've kind of fallen in love with each other, which is fine. Birds need to be with other birds, actually. But they're happy birds now. I've had them for, what is it now? May 2025, 13th of May. Had them for 8 months. Took them 8 months for them to get used to each other and not be frightened so much of me. Kermie's still a bit wary of me, but little Beau's less frightened than Kermie actually. He's accepted me. They still don't hop up on my finger though. I actually need to really, every day train them to do that. But you know what? I'm just happy for them to just be happy and contented. They'll come to me of their own free will and their own time, like all my men. But unlike human men, they won't be trying to rut me and use me and throw me away like a dirty rag. Nay, their love will be honouring and true, because bird lovers, immense people of earth. Because of that, they came to the horses and the packs that they still carried. Ardokos had been right. The Scots had known who Briarca was. Not Scots, Scouts. Scouts had known who Briarca was and were in awe of her. Even in the dark, they were careful not to hold her gaze for long or to look her full in the face. He had been wrong about their numbers. There were 9 scouts leading them and surrounding them and following behind in case they should lose the path. The 8 that he had known of, and 1 he had not. The shame of that one left unseen hung about him the full length of the silent, leaping run along the crag's head, past the fire and the dancing and the rattled drum beats and mourning pipes that reached up from the valley's floor and snared them almost in the net of their rhythms. They were not moving slowly. The scouts could run through dense forest at night as easily as in the daytime, and they were good guides. Those who followed them were not much slower. Even so, the stars had moved a long way across the sky before they came to the crag's end, so that Briarca had begun to wonder if she should have tethered Stone and gone back for him in the morning. Then they found the path and ran down it to the valley's floor, and a horse that she recognised whinnied in the dark, and it was not, after all, a waste of time running to the end of the valley. "That's Granny's mare," she said. Just going to spritz my boys. Spritzy, 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 spritz. Perhaps I should have taken my glasses off before I did that. Little Bo just jumped on that big swing. It's weird, he doesn't like the narrow swings I gave him. He likes that big one, though. Here he goes again. Are you swinging, little Bo? Are you swinging on that big mighty swing and chewing all the bits of wood? They love that thing. It took Kearney about 3 months to accept it, and now the little one's finally accepted it. It's amazing, isn't it? Pardon me. Really amazing. Yes. Little snooks. Right. "That's Granny's mare," she said. It was, and with it were Dubornos's moon grey and Guinevere's draft horse and Hawk's odd-eyed chestnut. I had a chestnut as a young woman, as a teenager. I loved that horse. Absolutely loved it. Wasn't properly trained either by the gods. My mother used to refer to her as, "You're going to visit the big pet today?" "Yes, Mum." What's true is true. It's a giant pet. Oh well. The light from the fires stretched just... I like my animals to be wild and free, people of Earth, as much as is possible, you know. The light from the fires stretched just so far and no more, enough to show that their travelling packs were untouched, and the weapons wrapped in oiled skin and bound to the back of the saddle. Do you want some more spritzing, Kermie? Opening himself wide. There we go. You're hot after all. On your tummy, little boy. Got you on your tummy. Right. Could do with a cup of tea now, quite frankly. The mum was getting tired, people are there. I said I'd do 2 chapters and we shall. Right. Her father's blade was there, strapped to the back of Hawk's horse that had been sent to Mona for safekeeping at Iburovich's command. She felt it as a tangible presence, as if her great-great-grandfather had made it newly and lifted it from the fires and placed it in her hand, still smelling of burned iron and his sweat. She felt the roughness of his face as he kissed her, and his hands on his shoulders, and his voice speaking, but not the words that he said. He was her father and not her father, a different part of her lineage. The blade sang to her as it had not done in the silent dell by the god's pool, with Valerius watching over her as if she might break, and her son setting fire to the Roman watchtower in the first attack of a war. Or perhaps it had sung just the same, and she had not been able to hear it then. The horses were hobbled by a fast-running stream. Under the watch of the Kornovi scouts, she spoke to them and, briefly, to the horse guards on guard, and the blade was hers, wrapped tight and singing. Her palm burned as it had when it was newly cut. She could have wept for the feel of it returning when she had thought it gone beyond recall. She knelt and laid the blade on the stones and heather by the stream. Stars gave her light. The hunter had passed over, but the hound remained, reflected in the running water and the twinned serpents that followed behind it. She sought and found the ties with which Hawk had bound it safe. Not yet, don't unwrap it here. Adakos was a shadow seen in the silver of the stream. He spoke softly, so that the sound was lost in the rushing water. If you need to use it to fight your way out, we are lost anyway. But I think it will count for more if it is unwrapped by the fire in front of the elders under the light of the horned moon. Because there's no business like show business and razzle dazzle and ritual and outward displays of power are everything. People are there. Ask me how I know. That's why you need a tribe of like-minded people who are courageous to stand by your side, treat you with honour and respect, and have your back, your front and your sides. Outward displays of power and ritual and magic and honour and courage and love and peace. Nothing is valued unless it is witnessed by others, people of earth. Even in death, we bear witness by virtue of funerals, you understand. It takes great courage and chutzpah, temerity and audaciousness to stand alone, to die alone, to continuously live alone, to hold your own power alone. Mamati has spoken. He came close enough to touch. It can sing to you wrapped as well as unwrapped. She had always trusted his common sense. Thank you. She squeezed his arm. There was no shame in missing the 9th Scout. I should have died for it. His voice was less bitter than she had feared. But for this night, I am glad I did not. Just to hear the music they make was worth living a night longer. He tipped his head down the valley, whence the fire made the trees glow red, and the music of the deer men skittered through the branches. Do the skull drums of the she-bear sear so strongly the souls of those who are not part of our rites? Briaka grinned. Far worse, but you have never yet sent a man unwilling to his death. For that you can drum any kind of discord. We will have to move fast now if we are to reach the dancers before the moon rises. The bear is not a friend to the deer. Here comes my vegetables. Will you be safe if we go back to the fire? As safe as anyone, and I'm not going to stay away. We should take the horses. It will look better like that. Just go and grab my vegetables. I won't be long, people of earth. Right, you are abundance at Sacred Space. I've got a very full vegetable bin and I tend to not eat them when they go. Some of them go rotten, so I'll have to sort through that later. But I might skip the next delivery because it's just too much fruit and veg and I don't eat that much. I'm not coping with the abundance. It's a feast or a famine at Sacred Space sometimes. It can be just as irksome having too much as it is not quite enough. Right, there's plenty of very misshapen peaches because you know you're buying like the ugly fruit that the supermarkets reject, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly edible and good fruit, good and fresh, but it's all a bit, you know, odd sizes. So I might make something like a peach cobbler or something with the peaches. Got to do something with those. There's quite a lot now, by the gods. But anyway, it's my quest to be eating healthier, people of Earth, and I'm being dragged kicking and screaming because I'm not really all that good about cooking and eating healthy, but I've been good about making baba ganoush. I finished all the baba ganoush off last night. I thought I really enjoyed that and I couldn't get enough of it. So I thought, you know what? Finished it off for dinner and it was delicious. They've given me another small eggplant, but you actually need two, but that's okay. I could buy another small one. Whip up another batch of baba ganoush. I'll be walking and talking and farting and looking like a baba ganoush soon. Oh, what am I saying? I'm already wearing aubergine. I'm already look like a giant baba ganoush. Well, anyway, what can I say? Can't take life too seriously, people of Earth. Gotta know and to see the funny side of it. Guess you're going to be eating peaches this week, boys. I was just thinking there wasn't a lot there to feed to you guys. Oh well, I'll buy whatever they need extra, so it's all good. Yes, my little handsome boys. My pretty Kermie. What you doing, Kermie? Do you want a spritz? Do you want a... You watch what he does when I pull out the spritzer. Do you want a spritz? He runs away. Do you want a... Oh, Bo wants a spritz. Bo came forwards for it. Yes, Bo's not scared of the spritz, Kermie. He knows a good time when he's going to have one. It's because he's the Bo, isn't he? All Bo's know how to have a good time, people of Earth. I remember when my Beauregard, my dog, shagadelicked that teddy bear that Lynn gave him and ended up at the vet's. Friction pain from no lube on a teddy bear. $112 and something cents. Oh, I went on about that for months, but it was painful for my little Bo, but kind of hilarious when you think about it. Well, I didn't know, did I? I was completely oblivious. Hadn't thought about it, that it might ravage his little doggy dick. My beautiful Bo, I miss him. Yes, your name's Bo too, he turned and looked. There was another Bo in my life, Beauregard. Bo, Bobo, Bobo baby for short. Yes, it's quite quirky that the gods sent me another little Bo in the form of a birdie. And Kermie, yes, very quirky indeed. But they're so happy. They're looking at me and Kermie's rubbing up against the cage, giving himself a scratch. You know, if you let me touch you, I could give you a scratch on the behind your ear for you. Yes, I'm a good scratcher. We're not there yet, says Kermie. We're not quite there yet. Right. Her mother rode Hawk's horse, and Stone was with her. Briaka came from between the trees and stopped for a moment where the trees stopped, so that pines stood as honour guards on either side, and the fire made liquid bronze of her hair, and turned Hawk's red horse to heaving, sweating gold. That must have looked beautiful. She was changed, different, cast in new colours. Grain saw all of those in the first vertiginous moments when it was all she could do to hold on to Balos and not fall from his shoulders in the whirling madness of the dance, and looking out to the trees was one thing too many. Grain saw her mother and the horse and the hound, and something lit all three from within that was greater than the fire, and was not anything she had seen before. Whether it was a healing was another question. She could not hear the song of any blade, which was a good thing. Holding tight to Balos's wrists to keep from falling, she spoke to his upturned face. And the quantity of questions it held. Was that dog down the road howling? Doesn't usually howl during the day. Hope he's okay. I have never seen the wildfire in my mother. Is this it? I don't know. He was still joyful, but it's far more than I was led to expect. What of the blade song? I don't know. I can't hear it. I think it may be my grandfather's blade. Valerius gave it to Hawk. It's still on his horse. Iron clashed on iron in her head as she spoke. Not understanding, she said, the dance must have opened you to more than is your right. That song is not for others to hear. Balos's face was open and wise. He had dreamed on Mona and was given to Briga. He sang as he swung her. Tonight, child of the moon, everything is for everyone to hear. He had dreamed on Mona and was given to Briga, and she was a child and not yet fully healed. Still, she did not believe him. The trees parted again. Sigfa came through, and then Ardokos on Briaka's other side. Others saw them, and the dancing faltered, and then the singing and the pipes, and one of the drums. Its twin kept up an erratic solo for a dozen beats, and then it too failed. Hawk continued to leap and spin in the circle's centre. The god filled him and he could not stop. I know that feeling. even though I'm a Jew, I'm very open as a shaman to influences of the gods, people of earth. As they reminded me the other day, I did not die multiple times for a reason, even though I'm beggared to know sometimes what that reason is, people of earth, but it makes sense only to the gods and the Holy One who creates all the gods, all that is, was and ever shall be. Let's have correct obeisances to the source field. One must keep everyone happy. One is a shaman. It's a difficult tightrope to walk sometimes. Can't always keep everyone happy, including my own self. But I'll tell you who's happy. Kermie and Bo are very happy these days. I think they're the happiest I've ever seen them in 8 months of them living with me. It's quite wonderful. And you know what I think has made them happier? Putting them together and sharing the cage together and living a more natural, bird existence of being in companionship. I wonder if Mama T would be happier if she ever found a equal, worthy companion. Would I ever allow such a thing as to share my life, my sacred space, my inner sanctum sanctorum with a human mortal man ever again? After the last savagery, I very much doubt it. But I've thought that before and fallen in love again, so what do they say? My heart will go on. Maybe, babies. In the meantime, there's a higher power demanding obeisances, and I must honour that. Hawk continued to leap and spin in the circle's centre. The god filled him and he could not stop. Gunnar matched him so that he might not be left alone. The rest of the dancers, Kornovi and Isini, came sweating to a standstill. Bellos said, "You should go down now." Granny came unsteadily to the ground, holding on to Bellos's forearms, and then his shoulders, and then his waist. She hugged him as her feet reached the earth and felt the soft whisper of his lips as he stooped to kiss her head. About her, men and women were returning slowly to their senses. Not all of them wished to. Ifnes shook his head and bent double with his hands propped on his knees, catching his breath. "Too soon," he said. "It should not have ended yet." He did not have breath to elaborate, but he was not a broken man, only concerned. Duburnos was broken. He stood near Grain, staring east to where the first hard edge of the moon sliced up over the crag's head. The light of the fire did not touch him at all. He was bone white, with his eyes as pits in his face, and a black weight of grief about him that cast his decades of melancholy into shade by comparison. For no better reason than that she was closest, and she cared for him, Grain slid her hand in his. He flinched and made to step away, and then came back to himself and let her small hand hold him and feel the shaking and the hollowness in his soul and the tunnel that led from it to the God that was closing. The light shining through the tree behind me is reflecting a bright light on my page in the shape of a love heart, and next to it is another just circle, like a love heart and then a circle. It's very sweet, isn't it? Very, very sweet. Love surrounding me on this beautiful summer's day. Very sweet, my boys. So I'll repeat that last line. He flinched and made to step away, and then came back to himself and let her small hand hold him and feel the shaking and the hollowness in his soul and the tunnel that led from it to the God that was closing. He looked down at her and tried to smile and failed. With raw shock, she saw the tears leak to join the sweat on his cheeks. "It's over," he said, and his voice had lost all hope. "We were so close, and your mother has broken it." Grain let her hand drop away and did not try to comfort him further. Never in her life had she heard so much grief from any man. She turned towards her mother and did not know what she could do, only that what had been shattered must be made whole. And only the Boadicea who had done the breaking could mend it. Thus concludes chapters 34 and 35. And we'll continue tomorrow with chapter 36. So wherever you are in the space-time continuum on planet Earth, be thou descendants of the Iceni, proud and wild Scots and Welsh, no doubt. Be the brigantines, fee fi fo fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be the descendants of the English. In my case, I'm a descendant of the English, the Irish and the Scots on my father's line, and a tiny smidgen of French. and on my mother's line of Polish and Jewish, not Jewish, well, possibly Jewish actually, but Polish and German descent. We don't know. I can't prove that we have Jewish ancestry because my grandmother was illegitimate. Nothing was listed on her birth certificate. And yes, we'll never know the answer to that question. But I have my suspicions, my ideas, my notions, which cannot be verified without proper documentation, people of Earth. But anyway, the ancient ones, the ancestors, call us every day in every way into our own spirits and our own power as individual people to honour the old gods, the ancient ones, along with your Judeo-Christian, or if you're Muslim gods. Never to forget that we are forever bound as human flesh to this earth, and the earth has her own potent energies referred to as plasma, or the genie, or the fairy folk. But not just the fairy and the genie, but other potent, life affirming, ennobling, courage building energies coming up from under our earth as the magma writhes way, way, way down in the inside of this planet, sending up heat and causing earthquakes, occasionally erupting in volcanoes, writhing beneath our feet in a kind of an eternal dance with the spheres and the outer stretches of space too. Because I'm firmly of the belief that everything is connected, even if we're not always conscious of where those connections lie. When we transmigrate from this form to another form, when we enter into the light, all that is, was, and ever shall be, all the answers to all the questions will be given us in a nanosecond. It will all make sense in the end, people of Earth. But in the meantime, I adjure you and myself to continuously live your very best lives in nobility and dignity and honour, and courage and heart and love. If not with other humans, because they've consistently let me down, then at least with my birdie boys and, our mother Gaia, the gods, and the spirits and ancestors that love us, who visit me frequently. So, blessed be, Goddess bless. Have a beautiful day. Bye for now.